All right, everybody. Well, welcome to another show of Red Grace Live. It's good to be with you guys. As always, my name is Emilio Ramos. I'm here with Micah Whitehead. Good to be with you, Micah. How are you doing, brother?
I am doing just great. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm actually excited because we're going to be breaking down a video that was just sent to me. Actually, it's a video that was just done by the folks over at Living Waters. And it's a really good video. It's actually something that I've been focusing in a lot concerning, artificial intelligence, transhumanism. And I don't know, man, I've kind of embraced this role that this is really kind of a large feature now of my apologetics, and there's kind of no getting away from it. And one of the reasons I was reminded of that is because I think more and more ministries are going to use the appropriate pun. I think more ministries are going to start coming online with this, and sure. I think they're going to start waking up to, like, we better cover this. So,
yeah, and you've absolutely talked a lot about it. I would say in the last probably 6 months, you've been kind of hammering this home. Kind of this new apologetic series that you have on your YouTube channel here on Red Grace Media on YouTube, and then also the Christ and Kingdom podcast. Was it episode 7? I think that you kind of tackled the transhumanism thing. So there's a lot of stuff that just what you also said with Living Waters. You've done some stuff with Living Waters, 4 podcasts, I believe, with them out in their studio. So there's a lot. You've talked about it a lot already, but I think that we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm very happy to see that Ray Comfort decided to do something on this. And, there's few people out there that do it better than Ray. When Ray Comfort decides to, put together a video collage and, do some, some neat documentary stuff on a subject, like he just also recently did something, the Living Waters guys, they did something on Catholicism, and all their stuff is so well edited and well produced. And so I'm glad because it gets more people thinking about it, whether they agree with the way that Ray Comfort did it, or whether they don't agree, or whether they think it's crazy or whatever. At least people are going to have to contend with it now. And so I don't know. I just think more awareness, more people on it, more where the church is being forced to have to combat it and deal with it.
Right.
I mean, that's the way the nature of, church history, when you think about all the error, all the challenges that have come, against Christian orthodoxy over the centuries, the church has always done its best work when it's under attack and when it is forced to have to formulate a response. That's what we had to do with Arianism, what we had to do with Sabellianism. That's what we had to do in the Reformation with with Roman Catholicism and all of that. And every time we respond and put our minds together to have to put an official statement or confession or doctrine or counsel or something to come out in terms of a worldview response to something, Christianity, that's when most theology really historically was crystallized and formulated and developed. So it's always good to bring awareness to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And so how long have you kind of been diving into this topic yourself?
Oh man, it's been maybe 5 years of maybe more of seriously considering it, and definitely in the last few years, maybe the last 3 years, where I have been reading extensively some of the primary literature on all of this stuff, because I found out basically that there was a bunch of material being produced on YouTube and everything else. And a lot of it were, a lot of this YouTube material was scientists. And quite frankly, it was, computer engineers and stuff like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is everybody so, why are our computer engineers basically geeks? Why are these guys getting so many views on YouTube and stuff like that,
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's because of books like Ray Kurzweil and Max Moore and Eric Schmidt and all these other guys, Hans Marovich. It's like those books are now coming to fruition. And also the explosion of sci-fi movies that feature things like AI, kind of created almost like a popular pop culture level interest in AI and all things futurism. So that really just even more so made me look into this stuff. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's yeah, man, let me do the first word, and then we'll get into this video with Ray Comfort dealing with Yuval Noah Harari and artificial intelligence and his claims of what is coming in terms of artificial intelligence and what that means for the Bible, what that means for Christianity and the biblical worldview. But first, let me just start us out with this word.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. So one of the reasons why I appreciate what the guys at Living Waters did in this video is, this video is entitled "Warning Famous Gay Jewish Leader Wants to Rewrite the Bible Using AI." And of course, he's talking about Yuval Noah Harari. Now, one of the reasons why I think this video is going to be very important for us to consider, to walk through and talk through, is because Ray Comfort does something that tends to make people kind of uncomfortable. We can say he actually goes there. He connects the idea of technology and what's happening with AI and eschatology and what the Bible has to say, let's say, concerning things like Antichrist, the mark of the beast, those kinds of things, and our eschatology. And a lot of people are not willing to do that. But as part of the research that I've done, a lot of the things that I've written on, a lot of the stuff that I've taught on in the new apologetics and in other video series, I actually tell folks that eschatology is the future of apologetics, in that what AI and what the transhumanist futurist worldview is really developing and really offering us, and you'll see that in this video, is nothing short of a full-scale reworking of eschatology. It's a complete, total reworking of what is our hope, what's our future, how is mankind going to go to the next level, what is next for humanity. And ironically, today we'll interact with a website called Humanity Plus, used to be called Humanity 2.0. But again, it shows us that the topic of eschatology, as we consider things like AI and the futurist worldview, are completely unavoidable. The other thing is that this video will show us, or at least this is going to be one angle I'm going to want to talk about, is the convergence between globalism and futurism. That's a very, very important issue right there. I don't think it comes through very much in this video, but certainly when you know who Yuval Noah Harari is, what he stands for, who he's connected with, you understand that globalism is very, very important to this whole discussion about transhumanism. Also, when you think about what people are talking about, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, robotics, artificial general intelligence, and things like that, Chat GPT, and the world of futurism today, what you're going to find is that it is completely godless. And that's where we need to come in with a truly biblical apologetic and a biblical response, because the foundations of transhumanism and AI are absolutely godless. It really kind of goes against the grain of thinking that this whole thing and using technology is all sort of a neutral issue. It's not religious or non-religious. It's technology. It's a machine. So how could it be biased one way or another? But because when we consider what transhumanism is suggesting, what they're purporting, what is the transhumanist proposal, what is the futurist dream, what we find is that it's absolutely fundamentally godless in every way. I would say it's not devoid of a spirituality. I think there actually is a spirituality that is at work, but it is thoroughly pagan. It's not Christian in any sense of the word. And therefore, what I believe this does for us today, the church in the 21st century, is that we are being presented, as much as we're being presented with a new crisis, as much as we are being presented by things that might come across as apocalyptic and scary, and Google engineers are now coming out of the woodwork and becoming essentially whistleblowers, alarmists, coming out and telling us that they've created basically a monster, and that even the supposed godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, has just come out saying, look, we created a monster. I fear it's out of our control. We don't know what it's going to do. This thing could easily spell the destruction of the entire human race. Well, what that suggests for us, brothers and sisters in Christ, is that we must have faith, and we have to have confidence, and we have to believe what the Bible teaches about eschatology, anthropology, the image of God, and of course, the sufficiency of the Word of God and the sufficiency of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I would say right now we have a golden opportunity, if you would, to preach the gospel of transhumanism. In other words, to preach a gospel that will answer to all the issues that involve our technological future and the culture that is being built all around us right now. So hopefully, as we break down this video with Ray Comfort, hopefully all of those things will come together. So that's my first word. All right, Micah, so initial thoughts. You've seen part of this video, if not all of it. I've watched it a couple times. Right. What are some of your initial thoughts as you looked on with wonder at Yuval Noah Harari?
He seems to have an answer for everything, and it's kind of kind of read the Book of Revelation. You kind of get the thinking of, oh yeah, that's the spirit of the Antichrist right there. It is really terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, he's making some very bombastic claims for sure. And if you have Yuval Noah Harari's books, I have all of his books, I think, but definitely in his trilogy, when you look at, for example, when you look at his book Homo Deus, in his book Homo Deus, he doesn't hold back this idea that he's going to talk about, even in this video, where he talks about the fact that we are basically creating the ability, the platform, where we can become human gods, where there are people that through technology will be given godlike abilities, which is just surreal, and of course ultimately absurd. But this video right here that was just produced by Living Waters, I think captured some of the would I say the best moments of Yuval Noah Harari? I don't know if they're the best moments, but
the highlights
are more telling moments. Certainly exposing exactly what Yuval Noah Harari is thinking. And actually, in this opening clip, which I think will take us almost all the way up to 2 minutes. So what we want to do, Micah, and I know that you've got your hand on the trigger here, but what I want to do is I want to take this video that Living Waters produced in its entirety. I want to break it down. I want to methodically talk through it, because I think it's a perfect I think it's a perfect point where we can kind of a springboard, if you would, to be able to talk about the worldview of transhumanism, to really kind of see the underbelly of this thing, and to start understanding how some of these people are thinking, and how some of these ideas, they just go out there, they're spoken, and they're just unchallenged right now. They're just they're giving these massive platforms where they can say whatever they want.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's get to it. Here we go. Verse 2.
Yeah.
This is Yuval Noah Harari. He's Jewish, referred to as a public intellectual, historian, and professor of the Department of History at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He's the author of the blockbuster book Sapiens, which has sold over 45 million copies. He says the book explains what it means to be human. You're going to hear him talk about human beings being like gods, which was Satan's first lie to Eve, about his homosexuality, his strong belief in evolution, about Jesus and his teachings, and even about the resurrection of Christ. Though he's an atheist, he will quote the Bible, continually refer to Scripture, talk of God as the petty lawgiver, and speak with excitement about the possibility of artificial intelligence replacing the Bible with a new and better version. You'll hear him say that we have the power to create new life forms, which is just not true. The most intelligent scientist on the face of the earth can't create a grain of sand from nothing, let alone any form of life. God alone creates life, man destroys it.
Tell us what you see.
Now, let's just stop right there before before Yuval Noah Harari goes here. I just want to address a couple things that Ray Comfort did in his introduction there, which was really good. But you heard a little bit of the biography of Yuval Noah Harari, and Ray is right. Yuval Noah Harari is a historian, the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and he has written a number of books. Sapiens is one of them. Homo Deus is the other, and Lessons for the 21st Century is yet another one that he just recently wrote, which again, this trilogy is a trilogy that is completely godless, totally anti-Christian, and that comes true. But the other thing that Yuval Noah Harari is that he is the chief advisor to Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, which of course is a globalist, now a well-known globalist institution, is seeking to institute such things on our society as 15-minute cities. They really, some people would say, really took advantage of what happened during the pandemic and all the medical issues that came with that. They were kind of at the forefront of that. They recently, and maybe in the last couple of years, also made news because they're advancing things like the fact that they are going to make us eat bugs to sustain us, right? No more steak, no more real food. Everything will be synthetic food.
No.
They also made the very classic statement.
I'll put my foot down at taking away my steak. You take away a ribeye from me. I mean,
wait a minute. No, but Micah, you don't understand. It's going to be a synthetic ribeye. It will look like a ribeye, smell like a ribeye, and taste like a ribeye. But what it's made out of, you'll never know.
No, because all my ribeyes have names. So it was that cow over there, and that was Sally, and so
that was Sally. That's right, and Cap ribeye. But that's who Yuval Noah Harari is. He is a globalist thinker. It's not enough to talk about transhumanism when you're talking about Yuval Noah Harari. He is heavily involved in the sociology of globalism. And why does that matter? Well, globalism, of course, is a socioeconomic development. It's a vision for the future of mankind at the geopolitical level, and it seeks to kind of bring everything into one holistic system of governance. It's not. I think we would have a wrong vision in our minds if we were to think of, something like, a single country or a new world order where there's a Jedi temple and there's the Sith Lord temple and something like that. It's not quite like that, but there is this sort of intercooperability that they're going for, this interconnectedness kind of thing that affects both technology, economics, sociology, and then ultimately ethics. And of course, in the midst of that will be things like religion and spirituality. And that's why, as Christians with a biblical worldview, this is why it absolutely matters to us. Now, as Ray mentioned here, and this is really meant, Micah, to be a deep dive of this video. We're gonna do a deep dive here. So we're gonna take our time. And the next couple episodes of Red Grace Live, we want to dismantle this whole video and break everything down as much as possible, because I think the things that are mentioned here are that important. But he introduced Yuval Noah Harari as a homosexual, and of course he is, and that comes through in all of his writings. He doesn't fail to mention, in fact, that he's a homosexual, and ultimately how that he has basically an axe to grind against particularly the Christian worldview, but not exclusively. Probably just like everybody else, he focuses on the biblical worldview, because he probably doesn't want to be found sort of speaking out against, let's say, Islam, right? While you have the biblical worldview, of course, condemning the sin of homosexuality, in the present day, Yuval Noah Harari knows that Christianity is not a theocracy of some kind, and yet, were he to focus on Islam, what he would find is that Islam today, not in some prior economy in the redemptive history of, let's say, Allah, if there was such a thing, and there's not, but that right now, the Muslim idea, the Muslim politic, if you would be to execute homosexuals, let's say. And of course, he's never going to focus on that. So just a little bit more of a background on who Yuval Noah Harari is. He is teaching not just history, but he's also teaching, in a sense, ethics, because I've actually seen classroom environments in which Yuval Noah Harari is sitting around with a group of his students, and they're literally talking about having to basically create a new set of 10 commandments, a new ethic for a new world. It's quite fascinating, alarming, all at once. So let's just think about that. Also, when Ray Comfort says here, and I want to slow down because I don't want to miss anything, but part of what Ray said there is that they believe that they will create new life forms. I don't know if you caught that reference, but of course, we would say, well, they can't, because as Ray pointed out, the most advanced scientists in the world can't even create a grain of sand. So it's not like they can actually ex nihilo create anything. They can't start from scratch and create anything. They can combine the things that God has made, okay? But this brings us to the definition of what constitutes a new life. Now, Micah, just for you and for everybody watching, you have to understand that for the futurist community, there is a particular cosmology that is emerging, that is becoming more and more and more, what is the word that I'm looking for? Kind of committed to a new definition of consciousness, where the concept of computation is driving this definition of consciousness. Matter of fact, Micah, I told you we'd pull up Humanity Plus. So I don't know if you're able to do that, but if you go to the Humanity Plus website, humanityplus.org, it's kind of an older website, but the reason why that website is important is because there is a article there on the transhumanist declaration. They have a transhumanist manifesto, and they also have a transhumanist declaration. But here in the declaration, paragraph 7, Micah, read what it says there.
We advocate the well-being of all sentience, including humans, non-humans, animals, and any future artificial intellects, modified life forms, or other intelligences to which technological or scientific advance may give rise.
There you go.
Ooh.
Did you hear what that said? Modified life forms. And that's exactly what Ray said can't happen, remember? Which we would agree with him. It can't happen. But if you redefine the definition of life form as inorganic, artificial intellects, which basically is a fancy way of saying machines that are preloaded with some sort of computational process like AI or ChatGPT or whatever, then that constitutes a modified life form and a sentient, an intelligence that technology and science may one day give rise to. So for these people, Micah, the idea of consciousness, you can see video after video of Ray Kurzweil, for example, attempting to define what consciousness is. And he has now settled for the fact that consciousness is computation at some level. And so when you define consciousness, not the result, of having a body and a soul in a dichotomous union that we call the image of God in man, that has the breath of life and who is therefore conscious. No, but as long as something is capable of computation, there you have now some kind of sentient, conscious, new life form that is capable of computing, which now amounts to thinking. So computation, thinking is now sentience and consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's why, as I've mentioned to you, even in the past, Micah, that's the reason why they have to assign personhood to sentient, quote unquote, sentient, conscious computers, because to have consciousness is to have a constitution as some kind of life form or person. And in a recent video that I watched on AI, this person doing a documentary mentioned that the really advanced robot known as Amica was considered basically an artificial citizen by the UN. Okay, this is the language I'm telling people is going to explode from here to 2029. We are going to have an explosion in personhood language being assigned to computers. Okay, just we have to absolutely get ready for that, because that will blur the lines between what is created in the image of God, constituted a human being because they're made in the image of God, and what is the work of our own hands, to which we create based on the things that we have available to us. And simply because they can compute, that doesn't mean that you're looking at a person. So, I've got a friend who works in the field of robotics who tells me that at the factory that he used to work for, all the robots, I think I've shared this before, all the robots have human names, and everybody has to refer to the robots by their names. So, Skippy over there is putting together, is that a name? That's a bad name. That's like a dog's name.
That's a dog's name, yeah.
Or worse. But okay, so Bobby over there is a robotic arm that is able to put together, this thing or that. And again, we're seeing this push to redefine what a life form is, to redefine and reconstitute personhood all together. He also mentioned the issue of evolution. And let me just begin by talking a little bit about evolution before we go to this next clip, which is right around the 2nd minute mark. But in terms of evolution, you have to understand all of these books on AI, all these books that I have here, all this stuff, okay? The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. I did some of these books before, Mind Children by Hans Marovich. I've got dozens of them here. But these books all presuppose an evolutionary worldview. But there's a catch. There's a catch, Micah. These people are not interested in Darwinian evolution in the classic sense of the word. They could care less. Why? Because they're not waiting around for evolution anymore. This is in all the literature. This is in the transhumanist reader. This is in Ray Kurzweil's literature. This is in Yuval Noah Harari's literature. They are going to self-evolve in order to short-circuit the evolutionary process of survival of the fittest. That's all gone. That is all gone. So evolution is now in our hands, and we will self-evolve. We will bypass. So what is cutting edge today in the futurist community, in the scientific community, is all about bypassing evolution altogether as we self-advance into the future. We don't wait for genetics to do it anymore. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I just want to know how are they going to stop the survival of the fittest whenever the AI, the new machines, the new bioengineered modified humans take over and just wipe out what it was to be the original image bearers of God created at creation. What's going to happen? How are they going to stop evolution at that point?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's kind of like final evolution, right?
Right.
It was John Irving Good said that an ultra intelligent machine is the last invention that man need to make. And that's a very famous quote. And what that's basically saying is, once we create a machine smarter than us by a long shot, we're kind of done creating. We're done evolving in a sense. We're done producing. Human innovation is over.
Right.
And they take it from here, and like Hans Marvich says, we fade away. And then the artificial intelligent robots that are jacked up with AGI and ASI, artificial general and artificial super intelligence, they take over and they go explore the galaxy and go where no man has gone before. There you go. So one more pop culture reference.
Yeah. So, well, we've only gotten a minute into this video.
No, I told you we're doing a deep dive, so I'm not in a rush. We're going to do a couple episodes on this, but yeah, let's roll the next one, because this is where he starts really talking about the Bible, which it doesn't take long for you to figure out that the next minute of this clip right here, Yuval Noah Harari has an axe to grind against the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
Destroys it.
Tell us what you see and why it's difficult, perhaps, to preview the future at this time.
Well, we are now almost like gods in terms of our powers of creation and destruction. We now have the power to create new life forms, but also to destroy much of life on Earth, including ourselves. Instead of uniting in order to face these common challenges to our species, we are dividing, we are fighting each other more and more.
Yeah, and real quick there, before we get any further there, obviously you hear him talking about uniting. Well, of course, when man is all that there is and the way forward, your only hope and your only aspiration is no better than the Tower of Babel. Everyone better come together, or even as the civilization of Babel contended, we will have no name. And therefore, he says, let us make a name for the people at Babel under the leadership of the Antichrist figure, Nimrod. They said, let us make a name for ourselves, which is basically, let us propagate our humanity in a way that suits us, in a way that brings us all together. And the language of unity, this universalistic angle, this globalist, that's the globalist spirit right there. And you wonder what could be wrong with that. I tell you what, Micah, if you don't have the Spirit of God, and and you're looking out at the world in terms of what's the hope of mankind, the language of unity and progress and innovation is going to sound like gospel. It's going to sound like this is the answer. The answer is for us to come. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, when this is all that we have left, that's the answer.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a nerd too, and I dig out on some sci-fi shows, and it's always the utopian society where I guess human nature has just been, I guess the vaccines, the mRNA vaccines have worked, and man is no longer, trying to fulfill that base need to control things, to overcome things, for destruction and all that kind of stuff. And what I don't understand about these folks here is how they think that they're going to get around that. Someone will use it for evil. The common thread is always communism is bad, bad, bad. Oh, no, it's not. It's just never been done the right way, and it's never been done by somebody that has not turned evil. The Hitlers, the Stalins, the Maos, the Lenins, just name them all. It always ends in a totalitarian dictatorship that's coming about. The question I have is, though, will it be human or will it be some sort of machine?
Yeah. Well, of course, the language of we need to put together our collective, mind and will and effort and energy. In my opinion, as I've read the literature, to my understanding, if we're asked like, what's the end point? What's kind of the end goal, the end vision of all of this? As far as I can sort of project into what they're saying, the future is, Micah, it ends with hive mind technology. And hive mind technology is already major sort of talking point for these people. Ray Kurzweil talks about it. Yuval Noah Harari will talk. Eric Schmidt talks about it. What's going on in Dubai right now with the World Government Summit? They're already talking about how matter of fact, I saw a TED Talk in connection to all of that. I saw a TED Talk where a scientist was talking about the superiority of hive mind thinking. And he actually said, look, when we look at a beehive, we understand that those bees, there may be 1,000 bees, but they have an electronic pulse that they're emitting that every other bee can detect. And it helps every other bee work in unison with that bee and the queen bee, okay, so that the hive works together in optimum efficiency to build the beehive, okay, et cetera, and to pollinate and do whatever. And so this scientist said, look, the superiority of hive mind thinking and hive mind life is where we have to go. If we're all discombobulated as human beings on this planet, we're not using our collective genius and mind power together to move humanity forward. We're, in a sense, we're just not being our best. We're not working at our optimum potential, and therefore we will never reach our ultimate progress together. It's
but how do they
insane.
How do they define the optimal potential at that point?
Oh, of course. This is what I call, Micah, the idol of progress.
Yeah.
Not that.
No, it's to replace this right here.
Oh yes, of course.
That's all.
100%.
It's especially Harari, who, as you've said multiple times, has just an axe to grind on the God of the Bible, the ethics of the Bible, and everything that, he grew up learning in Israel himself.
Oh, absolutely. And he'll talk about it. And in this video right here, he is going to talk about the fact that the Bible is just passé and it's just fantasy and it's just, we need to get rid of it and it makes no sense. And we'll come up with something that actually might be good for mankind. I mean, the hubris is off the charts with this guy, and he had better be careful because last time I checked, God doesn't really respond well to
he will not be mocked.
Leaders. God will not be mocked, and he doesn't really respond well to global leaders that come out and speak these bombastic, blasphemous, hubristic kind of things. He makes feathers come out of people, and he makes people get eaten by worms and things like that. So you got to be very careful there. You don't want to come under the anathema of God for some of these things. But you see where, for Yuval, this is going. This is Homo Deus, God men. This is mankind becoming their own gods, controlling their own destiny, making up their own rules, creating their own worldview. That's what these people are all about. And spoken in scientific language. But let me tell you, the language of spirituality and the language of ethics is right there. You just have to have eyes to see what these folks are saying. So let's keep rolling on here with Yuval.
Evolution of life on Earth took something like 4 billion years. 4 billion years to reach these plants and to reach us, human beings. So ChatGPT and all these wonders, they are the amoebas of the AI world. What would T-Rex look like? It's the first technology ever that can create new ideas. Gutenberg printed the Bible in the middle of the 15th century. The printing press printed as many copies of the Bible as Gutenberg instructed it, but it did not create a single new page. it had no ideas of its own about the Bible. Is it good? Is it bad? How to interpret this? How to interpret that? AI can create new ideas, can even write a new Bible. Throughout history, religions dreamt about having a book written by a superhuman intelligence. In a few years, there might be religions that are actually correct.
What?
Wow.
What was that? There might be religions that are correct?
Yeah, he said there might be religions that are actually correct, which obviously means for him that up to this point, no religion is correct. Both him and Klaus Schwab are committed atheists, except for the fact that he just admitted Homo Deus. Deus is, the belief in a God. Might be a human God, but it's a religion nonetheless.
Right.
See, it's just all about self-deification. I mean, it really is. And that's why what Ray Comfort did in this video was so good, to show you that this is nothing more than the old serpentine lie in the garden: you shall be as gods. But I mean, talk about a total skewed representation of the biblical worldview at a fundamental level, as he talks about the Gutenberg press, and he talks about the transmission of the Bible, and how that although we transmitted the Bible, we didn't actually create anything new. Incredible technology. We were able to print the Bible in mass, but it didn't produce anything new. And it's like somebody please stand up in the crowd and shout out, "That's the point, Yuval."
Well,
we don't want anybody adding to the Bible anything new.
Right. The only thing new that I would say that it actually produced was new life. Take it to the spiritual sense,
right.
In new life.
Yeah, exactly right. But I mean, what you find in the lectures of these guys is total intellectual dishonesty. They just throw out a couple of tidbits. They use a little religious language, throw out a couple of historical artifacts, and sort of mystify their audience who have never read anything on bibliology. And even if they did, they're ready to suppress the truth just as much as he is.
Right.
So obviously, you see here, Yuval Noah Harari's basic fundamental commitment is to the superiority of machine-generated knowledge over against divine wisdom and biblical knowledge. And I tell you what, Micah, what should give all of us incredible alarm is that, as absurd as these claims are, I think our society, I don't know, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think our society is kind of primed for this moment right here, where people are kind of on information overload, where people are kind of, we've seen the 20th century now, how it worked out. We're going into the 21st century. I think for the typical person, they're burnt out on politics and religion. They are burnt out talking about heaven and hell and spirituality and their soul. And I think it's kind of like the cocktail for the perfect storm, where people sadly are ready and conditioned to resonate with a message like the message that Yuval Noah Harari is talking about here, which, with a wave of the hand, this guy wants to sweep aside human history as if it didn't happen, and as if it doesn't even matter if it happened, because, again, machine-generated information, data, knowledge, learning is so vastly superior that whatever it produces will automatically be better. And let me tell you, brother, as the advent of AGI advances, artificial general intelligence, machines that are no longer as smart as we are, given a specific task, let's say like playing chess, but in unpredictable ways and with multiple factors and scenarios, machines becoming smarter than us in almost every field that we can think about.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I can tell you that people will begin to sort of assimilate this worldview of machine-generated knowledge being superior. It will become the new Gnosticism. So, and to complicate matters even worse, brother, is the advent of what Jason Sosa pointed out in his lecture, his TED Talk, when he talked about digital natives and how people born at a certain threshold of technology no longer have the capacity to, in a sense, withstand the technology, the advancement, because their thinking has been so utterly conditioned from birth to think in these sort of technocratic, transhumanist ways. And like I said, man, it's like a perfect cocktail. It's like the storm clouds are gathering. Everyone sees it. And the only question that kind of the only question that matters at this point is how fast, how much, when, where, and who. Mm-hmm. How is this all going to play out? And that's why a date like 2030 is going to be really, really important. But let's keep going. Let's try to make it all the way past minute 30, the fourth minute here in what Yuval Noah Harari is saying.
Sure.
That just think about a religion whose holy book is written by an AI. That could be a reality in a few years. And you have this discussion for thousands of years about what humans really are. Are they immaterial soul or an immaterial mind? Or are they embodied beings, embodied entities? This was a major philosophical topic that you see, say, in ancient Christianity. This discussion that Jesus and the first Christians, influenced by Jewish traditions.
Don't be deceived by this man. That is not true. They were not influenced by Jewish traditions. They were influenced by the scriptures. Jesus flouted their empty tradition. He called the religious leaders hypocrites, saying that they strained at the gnat and swallowed the camel. He said that by their tradition, they nullified the word of God.
They believed very firmly that humans are bodies, which is why Christ rises in the body. He's resurrected in the body. And when Christ initially talks about the kingdom of heaven, he means the kingdom of heaven on earth. He tells his followers that there'll be this perfect kingdom here on earth, with trees and stones and people.
This is what he's telling his mostly secular audience, that what Jesus taught had nothing to do with God or of heaven. The kingdom of God is about trees and stones and people. In other words, don't be concerned about heaven, let's be concerned about this earth.
Yeah, so true. And matter of fact, what Yuval Noah Harari is doing here is he's preparing us to have a thoroughly materialistic worldview. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, it's to get people to think in non-eschatological ways. That's why this is maybe an example, Micah, and hopefully this will help you and our audience kind of connect the dots here of why Emilio has been talking about eschatology being so important. And again, I have to emphasize to people, when I say the word eschatology, I'm using it in its truly sort of biblical, theological context, meaning not just eschatology as in the things we all debate about, the timing of the return, the rapture, the rapture, the millennium, those kinds of things. We're talking about the metaphysical reality of what man is, a soul. There is an afterlife. What is the realm of heaven? Is it what Yuval Noah Harari is talking about? When he's going to go on to talk about heaven as being completely immaterial, and he's actually going to get into Platonic thought. Is that what we're looking at? So for Yuval Noah Harari, he introduces a couple things here in this clip. He talks about the nature of man, and he talks about the nature of the kingdom of God. And interesting enough, guys, now let me just take a little time here. But somewhere around the turn of the 19th century, so we're talking about here in the 1800s, we're talking about what is known as the Restoration period in church history or in the world, where during the Restoration period, coming out of England and going into colonial America, we're talking about a time in which there was an explosion in pseudo-Christian cults. Why is it called the Restoration period? Well, because these pseudo-Christian cults, where you're thinking about the Christadelphians, whether you're thinking about the Church of Christ, whether you're thinking about Mormonism, whether you're thinking about Jehovah's Witnesses or Seventh-day Adventism, they all had similar starting points in that what they were claiming was that they were restoration period. They were restoring the original message back to its apostolic biblical foundation, back to the original message of the Bible. And of course, Joseph Smith had his version of how to restore Christianity back to its original message. Rutherford with the Jehovah's Witness Watchtower Society, he had his version. The Church of Christ, the Seventh-day Adventists, Mary Baker Eddy Patterson, or whatever her name was, for the Adventists, the false prophet, she had her way of restoring Christianity back to its apostolic glory. That's exactly what Yuval Noah Harari has just done right there. He's actually convinced his audience that focusing on materialism is more original to the gospel. So, I mean, that's incredible. Yuval Noah Harari is telling us that the gospel originally was materialistic, and it was not eschatological. It was not supernal, which just means having to do with the realm of heaven. And it was not dichotomous. Man was not body and soul. I mean, it's truly, truly remarkable. And that the kingdom of God, was actually, by Jesus, a proclamation of a geophysical kingdom that would be manifested here on this earth. And of course, we have to really correct all of that language and all that thinking. We can't do it here with the space of time that we have. But isn't that fascinating, man? How he tries to literally rewrite Christian theology, and with the wave of a hand, he's just completely deceived all these folks into this weird sort of Platonic sort of form of Christianity, and he's just completely wrong. In this next clip, he actually makes that Platonic connection. So this will probably be our last clip for today, but let's roll this one.
That's how to get the admiration and the attention of a world that's worried about the future. And now listen as he says that any talk about sin and heaven didn't come from Jesus, but it came because of a form of Christianity that drifted away from his original teachings. Thank God we've got the scriptures to refute his lies.
Over time, under the influence especially of Platonic philosophy, Christianity drifted away from this view of humans as embodied and placed greater and greater emphasis on the immaterial soul or mind. It imagined that the body is dirty, the body is animalistic, the body, there is something wrong with it, and when you die, you are not coming back in the body, your soul is liberated from the material body, and it goes not to a kingdom on earth, but to heaven, which is a completely immaterial realm.
If you could change one thing in the world by magic.
Well, so there you go. What he just got done saying is that heaven is a completely immaterial realm. And that's actually, I don't want to say I'm glad he said it, but we'll take advantage of the fact that he said it, because Micah, there's a lot of folks out there that if you kind of surveyed the typical evangelical Christian today, there may be quite a few Christians that believe that heaven is immaterial, that heaven is sort of this celestial sort of the place where the ether, you kind of this ethereal existence, right? This realm, right, where it's just pure imagination, and that is closer. The fact that he brought up Plato, I think, is ironic, because Plato's idealism and Platonic Gnosticism is really what he's talking about. But what that shows is a couple of things. If I just could, the time that we have remaining, let me just say that Platonic idealism actually betrays the very point that Yuval Noah Harari is trying to make. And of course, with the space of time, I don't expect Ray Comfort to cover any of this stuff, because he's just doing I think it's like a 30-minute video. How long is that video? I don't know, 20,
no, I think
30
it's
minutes,
I
whatever.
think it's only like 16 minutes.
16, 17. Okay.
Yeah, it's
so,
short.
So in this short documentary, he's not going to cover, the idea of Platonic idealism and dualism. But in the end, remember what Plato did. Plato said that that the forms and accidents that make up this world, the forms are the ideas and ultimate reality, heaven, the ideal world, whatever, the realm of the mind, and that the features or characteristics or properties or accidents down here on this in this world, right? That they correspond somehow to ultimate reality. But in the end, what Plato tried to do in order to bridge the gap, if you would, between heaven and earth, is he ended up assigning physical form to these ideal concepts. Really crazy. And of course, a failure. And the same thing with Immanuel Kant, but kind of in the reverse, where Immanuel Kant and his dualism, phenomenal, noumenal, what Kant basically ended up arguing is that what you see in the phenomenal realm, meaning experience, what you experience down here in the physical world, is ultimately backed up by what he called the noumenal realm. But what Immanuel Kant ended up doing is saying that our minds actually project the physical world in front of us. So, again, this is what happens to you when you reject your creator. When you reject the divine revelation of God, you don't have a way of actually putting the world together.
Right.
The one, the many, subject, object. You've no way of connecting heaven, earth, right? Metaphysics, and let's say, the realm of physical material experience. You have no way of bridging those connections of what is ultimately real and how it works. And so, then he talks about Gnosticism. He actually accuses Christianity of becoming Gnostic, that we somehow adopted this idea of the evil, the sinful nature of the body, which of course is completely wrong.
Right.
Because of course, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we are told that the body is the temple of God. And so we're supposed to take care of our bodies. We're actually, the harsh treatment of the body is condemned in the book of Colossians. And so we don't engage in asceticism, and any offshoot of Christianity that ever did, obviously, is refuted by what Scripture has to say in this, on this issue here. But man, what Yuval Noah Harari is saying here is so absolutely disastrous for a person's worldview. But of course, he builds the crisis. Oh no, we have forgotten the message, the true message of religion. Oh no, we have drifted away from the basic goodness of those things. And in fact, AI and the robots and the machines, they will give us a final superior message that we can really latch onto, that we can really live by. And man, I tell you, that ends up being nothing more than another cult, another false worldview. So really fascinating that he gets away with all that, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the hubris that he has that can tell basically Christians what they believe and how they've gotten there, and the Gnostic view that you were just describing, but coming from an atheist who has rejected everything that the Bible has said, and then kind of just chooses and picks the things that he wants out of context, and then uses the ignorance of most of the Christian population today to say, well, this is what you believe. And it's like, well, do I believe that or don't I believe that? And then all his arguments, everything that he says about AI and this grand utopian vision that he has, then it kind of tastes a little bit sweeter at that point. It's like, well, maybe this isn't, maybe the gospel, maybe the Bible isn't exactly what will save us, or what we should put our hope in. It's tragic. It's tragic.
Yeah, no doubt. And this video actually by Living Waters is such a good example. I mean, we can do probably 3 parts on this, because he goes all the way in the video. Ray Comfort does evangelism in the end, where he talks about the concepts like the mark of the beast, the Antichrist, the end times, all of that. And it's a perfect sort of, springboard for evangelism. But I think for today, we'll leave it there. Next time, we'll come back, and really, Yuval Noah Harari is going to get into just the idea of a perfect world, of course, that will emerge because of the superiority of AI over the Christian worldview and any other worldview. So next week we'll handle that. But enjoyed this time. This has been a good exposition of these topics, and really a lot of fun. Micah, good to be with you again, brother. God bless. And make sure, guys, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, like. We're trying to get up to 10,000 subscribers. I think we've got what, 9.5, something like that.
9,600, something like that.
Yeah. So if you can help us to get over 10,000, that would be great. Till next time, for Red Grace Media, God bless you guys.
God bless.